The foremost authority in dealing with millennials in ministry is my next guest. She has really been yoked by the Holy Spirit to give direction and to give light for so many churches that are bumping in the dark, trying to figure out why it is we got babies and senior citizens, but we got nobody in between. I'm telling you, pastors, youth leaders, I need you to go get a pen, a paper. I need you to go to the note-taking section of your tablet because this is not just inspiration, it's information. I want you to be armed, equipped, and prepared. I told the ministry leaders at our own church, you can't be a youth leader just because you're a parent. And doing youth ministry is no longer field trips and coloring books, but you've got to deal with some real life issues. Would you please help me welcome Dr. Brianna Parker, who is here on today. Come on, y'all not shouting good. I'm glad to have you all the way from Dallas, Texas.
And I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. I want to jump right in because we're seeing a great disconnect. And I don't know exactly why it is or how it is that we resolve it. And so I wanted you to talk about, I don't know if we call them AWOL, if they're really missing in action or if they're fighting somewhere else, because it's clear that they are not absent of conscience. They're in the streets with Black Lives Matter. They are filling out petitions every day. They are involved and engaged and in debate, but they're not in Bible study. So what do we do to turn this around, or why have we gotten to this place?
Well, let's start with this. The Barna Group comes up with these different groups of millennials or groups of prodigals. You've heard them and different things. Well, in my research, I found that there was a group of people who we weren't paying attention to, and I dubbed them the Fugitive. And they're the Fugitive because they were raised in church, they did their Easter speech, they participated, but they never bought into Jesus.
Wow.
So in 18 years, we held them captive. They were respectful, they were obedient, and then when they left, everyone's coming after them, right? Everyone, businesses, churches, everyone wants them, but they don't want to be kept because they never bought into it. So first, it's shameful that in 18 years of participating, being obedient, coming to church, participating in everything, that we didn't capture their hearts.
Wow.
Now we think we're bringing them back to the church. We have to bring the young people back to the church. Well, unfortunately, they never caught it. They never got it. So they're the fugitive. They're running away. So you have a generation with a good amount of people who did grow up in church as the fugitive. Another thing we have to realize is that millennials are the most educated generation we've ever seen. We're also said to be the most imprisoned. We're the most underemployed. And so we're really dealing with issues that white millennials, a lot of times when they talk, are not dealing with. So they say millennials don't leave home. Well, white millennials don't leave home because they're saving money and they'll go and get a grand house and a boat and all those other things. Right. When black millennials are home, we have dual responsibility. So we might not leave home because we have survivor's remorse. We have to, yes, have a degree and yes, have a great job, but we have a family to take care of. So if I go and live a grand life that my peers or my counterparts would live, then my family has to stay behind in poverty. Yes. We can't do that.
What are we missing in the worship experience that does not include with intentionality young people?
So there's dissonance in the worship experience, and I think we are missing that. When black millennials, when white millennials go to work, we have to operate with the spirit of excellence. When we come to church, we have to take whatever it is you throw together in, 3 minutes. And so, we think it's cute to get there and say, oh, what's next? What's next? That's not cute. Come like you prepared for this. Pretend like you prayed for it. Act like you really thought about this and that you're actually putting on something that is going to make God proud. But when we get there, everything is in shambles sometimes. We get to see too much of your personal life in the pulpit. And I'm not talking about transparency because millennials want that. Yes. But I am talking about the fact that we come and there are certain things we don't do because we're afraid that it's going to expose the stuff behind the scenes. And so when we go to a worship service and we want to talk about, let's say we're talking about forgiveness, but you're not going to mention sexual abuse, then that's not legitimate. That's not authentic. I can't appreciate that. And so I think the church has a lot of disconnect too. What happens on Sunday morning is not what happens on Wednesday. What happens on Wednesday has nothing to do with what we're doing on Friday. Right. And I think we forget that people are different type of learners. So for a visual learner, if all you do is talk to me, then I can't really get that. But if there's digital media, if there's fine arts, then I get to understand that better. For those who are really listening just to hear, you have to say something valid. That means you can't say what you said last week.
Right.
Because the thing is, many times people say, well, I don't get it. Millennials don't want to come back. When you go to your favorite restaurant and you don't like their service, you come back. If you go to your store and they don't treat you well, you're not a 5-star restaurant.
Wow.
You're not my favorite store.
Wow.
And so I don't have that type of allegiance, because when I come to you, I might get what I need. I might not get what I need. You might be head in the clouds and rushing to celebration. You might not be talking about the truth about what we're dealing with, because while we're the most educated, we are said to be the most imprisoned. So don't pretend like we're all lazy and privileged. That's not true.
Right.
Too many of us are already imprisoned, headed to prison, or trying to just survive in life. So I think sometimes when pastors are preaching, they're talking about the millennial that the TV talks about. But we know another millennial. Black
right.
millennials are dealing and suffering disproportionately than white millennials. And so if I have to come and I have to hear celebration, or even when you rush to redemption, but you can't talk about the pain I'm going through, then
wow.
I can find that in other places, because millennials are having church, they're just not coming to your building.
Wow. I want to talk about a lot of churches in attempt to be relevant and contemporary. Say, okay, we know what to do. We'll just all wear jeans and T-shirts and tennis shoes, and that makes us a 21st century church. Is that really a bait? Does that even really matter?
No, and it's lame. It's like, bruh, you don't wear that every day. Take that off,
Yes.
But we want to see authenticity. And so you can be authentically in a, 3-piece suit, as long as what you're going to give me there is going to give me something that I can walk away with. As long as you're going to give me something that's going to make my Sunday night better. We talk about Monday. Life doesn't wait until Monday to just fall apart. And so when I walk into your church, I don't care what you have on, but it's about what's on the inside. It's about what's coming out of your mouth, that you're giving us something that's valuable.
One of the things, and I don't have a manual for it, and maybe you can help me and pastors, the fastest growing church, Bree, is the internet church. And nobody is coming up with how do we do discipleship in the cyber sanctuary. Because they're not coming to church doesn't mean they're not worshiping. A lot of them are doing it in pajamas. And so how do we go outside of our four-wall experience to say there is a demographic that is worshiping with us that never darkens our doors?
Right. So we have to remember, first have to ask, why are they not coming in? Because it's that extra drama we don't want to fool with. I don't want to fool with where I'm going to sit, if I have to park in a special place and all those other things. So sometimes it's not just about them being lazy and convenience and things like that. But what are we going to do? So as a consultant, I host webinars because people can't all come to me. The church is going to have to really get to the place where we're willing to stop saying my way or the highway. You have to come into this building, because if the church is about a building, then you can stay within your four walls and watch the rest of the world pastor.
Wow.
Because Donald Trump is a horrible president, but he's a good pastor.
Wow.
He is pastoring the people who believe in him. He knows how to make a clarion call to tell whomever will listen what he wants them to do. And pastors are not doing that. If you can do that while we're watching on the internet, we will come into your doors. And if we don't speak clearly, give us a vision, tell us where we're supposed to go. Because even if I don't walk into your church, I will walk out doing what is honorable, what you're saying to do. And I'm not saying we want to follow you off the cliff.
Right.
We don't want to do that.
Here is the tension that I think a lot of churches are wrestling with. About a couple of months ago, a young man was killed in my city, a rapper, and young people came from all over. And my ushers needed a crash orientation because they were trying to put them out because they were wearing hats and had jeans down there behind, say, oh, you can't come in. So I had to bring them together quick and say, is that hat worth their salvation? Because this may be the only time we get them into church. So where is this balancing act of holding the standard, as it were, to trying to find relatability? Where do we find that common ground?
By asking yourself the difference in sin versus tradition. Because so many times we push things out of the church and we think they're sin, but they're tradition. Like, I have to ask people all the time, what is wrong with the hat? It's disrespectful. Why is it disrespectful? Well, you can't even say hello to me, but you want to know if my dress is too short. Don't worry about my dress. Worry about my heart. And so we're going to have to really get to the point where we stop kicking things out of the church because we call it sin, but it's really tradition. Because the problem with millennials is that they don't have a voice. There's no value when we sit at the table oftentimes when it comes to churches and denominations. And so here's the problem. I've never been too young to tithe.
Wow.
But I'm still too young to lead.
Wow.
I'm still too young to cash vision. So
Yes.
it's going to be a real issue about having voice and value at the table. Naven's servant girl.
Yes.
She was just a casualty of war, right? She was part of the spoils of war. But when she got there, she had leadership and she had guidance. If you go and do this, you can be healed. Imagine what would have happened if he didn't listen to her because she was a spoil of war, because she was too young, because she was a woman.
Wow.
He would have missed out on his healing. And too many times churches are missing out on healing because we're not taking a real inventory of the gifts that are in our church. And we're going to miss out and we're not going to be whole and we're not going to be healthy because I don't have voice and value at the table.
How then do we change that culture? Because a lot of our churches are dying because we've made people leaders, not because they're proficient, but because they are perfect attendants.
Right.
So going into a brand new year, I want you to give just New Year's resolutions, if you can, for pastors that are trying to make this shift, trying to make the adjustment, but they don't know how to do it. Can you give 3 quick things on what they can do?
I sure will. Let's go ABCs like salvation. So I want you to accept that people are gifted, that they love the Lord, that they want to be a part of your ministry and stop all the drama of they're lazy, they don't want to be here. So accept the gifts that go along with millennials, and then believe that they have a calling just like you do.
Yes.
Don't be an entry elitist, and just because they didn't come down the aisle the same way you do means they don't love God.
Right.
And then confess your real issue. Confess the fact that we mirror you in ways that you don't like to see.
Right.
Confess the fact that we're entrepreneurs in ways that you kind of wish you might have wanted to do. And confess that we have some beef together that we need to sit down and really handle together so that we can make changes that will be a blessing, not just to the church, not just to the kingdom of God, but to the world globally.
Amazing. Isn't this amazing? I want you, because there are churches that need your input, need your expertise, groups of churches, ministerial alliances, and conventions that need to hear your voice and your expertise. How can they reach you, please?
So you can go to my website, www.blackmillennialcafe.com, or you can find me on social media, REV_BRI, or on Facebook, just Brianna K. Parker.
I love you for no reason. You're the best ever. I need you to come on, give it up for Dr. Bree.